Okay, so next up is Andrew Lane, our marketing mentor. Andrew, in your Blicky article, you talk about driving eyeballs to the website, what producers can do to ensure that. And of course, as we just discussed previously, that whole idea of driving eyeballs hopefully will drive a revenue. So, you've had a chance to sort of digest what Lee is presenting. Mm-hmm. What do you think about what she's doing, and do you have suggestions or ideas?
Yeah, the first thing I wanted to say is, I'm talking about marketing, and everything that Mary just said was great, but we're going to forget about that for a second now. We're just going to talk about marketing, and we can worry about that later. To what James said off the top about the idea of kind of creating that holistic brand, that's really a lot of what my article in the Blicky is about. I created this metaphor called the spoke theory, and the idea behind it is that your main site is the hub of a wheel. Mm. And every other piece of content that you put out there is a spoke on that wheel. And that's not necessarily just online. That's your television show. That's a postcard that you make. That's when you're on a panel today and you talk about your URL. Anything that you do in those situations is a spoke. And you want to make sure that you're driving that back to a hub that you acknowledge. So, that's kind of the biggest tip that I can give overall. But I just kind of wanted to take a look at a couple of the things that you were talking about. I had a question about your Google Maps. I think it's really cool. Are you planning to actually, you're creating an overlay application on those? Are all these historical pinpoints going to be actually embedded onto Google Maps so that I'm not a fan of Buffalo Air TV at all? I'm just someone who's looking at a Google map of the Northwest Territories. I'm going to be able to discover those?
On our site, you mean?
No, I'm talking about in Google.
No, we're just doing it for our own site. We haven't even thought of that.
Well, I think that's an opportunity because, I don't know who here looks at a map of the Northwest Territories regularly, but I would think they probably have some interest in that culture. And I think that's an opportunity for you to be able to tag those pieces and to drive people back to your site through opportunities like that. And that's why I think all the different social media pieces that you're putting in are really great. One thing I always encourage is never for producers to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great tools out there. Let's just use them. There's no sense in coming to Andra and asking Andra to fund you for $60,000 to build a Twitter-like application. Twitter's already built a Twitter application. Let's use that. And I really like what you're saying. Again, legal concerns aside, I really like what you're saying about that Twitter piece. I think that you're right to be maybe concerned about some of the more rogue characters, but if there's someone you feel can kind of play by a rule book, as James had mentioned, and I think that probably is a really good idea, you're going to get some really authentic content out of that. It's just another place where someone can discover this character. I think that one of the main things that you're doing in these social networks is you're increasing your discoverability. I think that that's a great thing you're doing on YouTube, allowing people to upload that content as well. And obviously, if you can hook into Google Maps in that way. I think that was really it. You're doing a really great job. And just to remember that every piece that you use out in the world there is another opportunity for you to find a new audience. And this is a very niche piece of content that you're talking about, but you do correctly identify that it could garner a huge audience. You just sort of have to find them piece by piece and bring them in.
Yeah, exactly. And using Mikey, for example, to run the Twitter widget, it's great because he's young, so he represents a whole new niche for history television. We're going to help bust their demographic and widen it, we hope. And he's very media savvy, so he gets all this, but he's got a real earthiness to him, a real authentic northern style. And people really relate to that because it is, as you said, Andrew, a mode of discovery. It's a world, I would normally never visit, right? I'm an urban girl from Vancouver, So he's a perfect portal into that world. He speaks to people and he's articulate in that northern earthy way. So
again, and I just can't stress enough that make sure that at every point where someone can discover you off your portal, that you're driving them back. I wanted to compliment you on the content seeding that you're doing already with the I Flew the North to start to build up those stories and to get that excitement happening in advance is obviously an incredible pre-buzz thing. The podcast will also be a really great tool for you to be able to reach into niche communities, and I think Kate's going to kind of expand on how that can lead to the revenue that you were talking about, so I won't steal her thunder, but my only question was, you talked about international broadcasters. Is any of this content that you're seeding out there, is it more thematic or is any of it sort of episodic based? Because I think that you can really get an international broadcaster nervous when you have something that could be considered a spoiler that's just out there on the internet on these social sites when they're saying, okay, I'm going to buy this 13 episode series. well, episodes 6 and 7 are already spoiled by X that's on Facebook or X that's on.
No, we're going to be careful that what's out there does not, they're teasers, they're snippets, they're not going to give the episodes away. And we're also ensuring as much as possible that there is international content, believe it or not. There are people from all over the world every year that come to the Northwest Territories expressly to fly on these old vintage planes. So we're going to market the hell out of them.
You got to market the hell out of it. You've
I know,
got
we
to.
might say.
Don't even listen to your lawyer. Just
I know,
market
that's
the
it.
hell out of it.
I'm a long time, aside from being a filmmaker, I'm a long time activist. So my credo is commit the thing first and ask forgiveness later.
Yes.
I don't
Exactly.
care. I don't
This is-
care.
this-
I
you're
want
gonna
what I
do-
want. I
You're
want
going to do
change.
great. It's clear. It's clear that you have thought ahead, so you won't be dead. Right, Rita?
I
Thanks,
hope not.
Andrew.
I'm too young to die.
I
That is all.
appreciate that. Okay, for that, I'll call you a marketing guru.
Thank you.